It was cold here this morning when we woke up. Snow pants were in order, and it's going to get nicer by the end of the day. It'll be about 45, and then tomorrow it'll be a little bit warmer. Great Colorado weather with a couple of inches of snow on the ground. I couldn't ask for anything different at this time of year. It kind of makes us get a little cuddly and recognize, what are we doing? Where are we going? How do we want to end this year? Do I like what's happened so far? Scott, what would you add to that?
Well, what I'd like to add to that this is perhaps my favorite period of time, the early part of November. I love even-numbered years to begin with. And
I did not know that about you.
You're in Colorado, Boulder, and I'm in Seattle. We have winds sustained 50 to 70 miles an hour potentially scheduled for or forecast for this coming Friday, which doesn't happen very often, but because you lived in Puget Sound for a while, every 5 or 6 years we get, a nice windstorm. So looking forward to that.
Okay, the last one they had was it was before Carter was born. So It was over 10 years ago, and we were there. We had no power for a week.
Yeah. I remember that.
And I was like out a little bit. I know Seattle, I was out east of Seattle, but Bellevue and Issaquah, I remember that. Good luck. Hunker down and don't get blown away, Scott.
All right. Now, there are people who are tuning in live, and obviously there'll be people watching us in rerun, but they might not know what we're doing today. And I'm going to pass the baton and have you
just eavesdropping in on us doesn't work. You're right. I think that's a very smart thing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scott and the Jess party here that we're going behind the scenes. So I am the host of the Bold Business Podcast. And one of the things that we have accumulated as we are completing our 253rd program is a ton of information. And Scott and I had this brilliant idea to go back through what some of our guests have said and pick them out randomly. So Scott knows who these people are and maybe even knows what the clips are, but I don't know what they are. And so then what's going to happen is he's got a fancy wheel and it makes noise. And so we're going to spin this wheel. And then what's going to happen is that we are going to talk about the clip because I don't know what it is. I'll be able to say, hey, that's not relevant. And here's why. I'll be able to say, oh my gosh, it's more relevant than ever. Or I'll say, do that. And here's how you can really amplify with what's going on in today's world to help you achieve your business growth and what you're trying to do. And Scott will have some opinions and some thoughts as well, because that is his nature. And I like it. And I wouldn't want it any other way. Right, Scott?
Well, we seem to bounce off of each other pretty well. So let's see how it works this time.
Let's see how it works. Okay, so now that we've set the stage, we've talked about the fall, we're ready to start seeing what is going to show up in our conversation today.
Okay, here's the Wheel of Fortune. And the winner is number 7, Mark Podolsky.
Mark. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, I have to cue this up a little bit. And, okay, we are ready. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's listen.
You need a very strong central axis and when you of our spiral, which is the company has very...
Every day, I meditate for 20 minutes. And when you become more aware of how crazy we are in our heads, you don't take it so seriously, that little voice. Because if I personified that voice, first of all, they never shut up. And second of all, they flip on a dime, constantly judging, and they're constantly narrating. Like, really? I'm going to make a major decision based on that voice? Like, come on. Practicing that takes time, but then you start seeing like overreacting or underreacting or whatever it is. Like, let's get to reality. Like, so I want to get to the reality of it. The reality of it is there's no cougars that are going to attack me anymore when I walk outside.
Well, we're going to just leave that last comment alone, and I'm going to change out cougar for lion in my mind, or jaguar, or some other kind of...
and why might that be?
Oh no,
Jessica?
we're not going to go there.
Okay, never mind. Never mind.
Oh, that's funny. Well, Mark Podolsky joined our show. And by the way, for those of you who are able to see the video clip, it reminds me very few people come on the program and stand like I stand. So for him to have had his microphone and to be back during that clip is amazing. And so 191 was part of our second season. And Mark wrote a book called Dirt Rich, the ultimate guide to helping you build a passive income. And that's using real estate and land. And so he was talking about mindfulness and meditation. And I will tell you, I think as the faster we think time goes, the more important that pause, that meditation, that mindfulness must be. And you want to know something, Scott? Yesterday, I took a meditation assessment. I've never done a thing like that before. I have a meditation practice. I have a grounding practice. I do my meditation every single day. And I read a lot, and that's also grounding to me. So here I was going, what is this meditation assessment going to be like? And turns out this woman who was, her name is Brooke, was sitting with me and asking me these questions. And I was really proud of all the work that I had done. And then you know what she says to me? She says, most people think of meditation as like just one thing to do. And mindfulness is a different thing to do. But did you know that there are hundreds and thousands of different ways to meditate and be mindful? And by the way, these types of practices actually allow for focus. They allow for healing, in addition to that stress relief that we think about when we think about mindfulness. So I learned a lot from Brooke, and she gave me 2 practices, and both of them were geared toward the thing that I need the most help with. And I'll totally tell you, and that is I can switch from topic to topic very quickly. However, I'm not always present from the beginning. It's almost like I have to be in the moment for a few moments before I actually fully get into the new situation. And so that's not always fully serving of the people that I'm interacting with, which is why, Scott, I'm really glad we have a green room, because by the time we actually hit the go on air button, I'm fully present and in that moment, in the space that we're in. And some of you are listening to this going, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, you're the ones that are answering your email while you're watching me and Scott. You're the ones that are showing up to another meeting and already thinking about what's coming next. Those are the types of things that we can even use a practice of some sort to help us be grounded and in the moment, because when we're all in to wherever we are, the more impact we will make, we'll better understand what's going on. We can reduce meetings. We can actually improve our overall results and impact just by that small piece. So I recommend meditation and breathing and pausing, not only to be present, but it does lead into better decisions over time.
Well, here's a thought, Jess.
I'm ready.
We're talking about meditation, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And meditation is when we take all of the spurious views and ideas and thoughts and maybe emotions and all of those sorts of things and calm them. And once the noise, if there's a signal-noise relationship in our life, once the noise has subsided, then we can kind of see and focus in on the signal. Basically, meditation 101. But teaming off of something that you said, what happens if you've got a number of people either around a table, like traditionally, or in a Zoom room, like a Zoom meeting, and they all, as a group, kind of take a breath and then calm down and get that noise. All of them, okay, individually have the noise subside so that there is, signal, which is there. But then is there a connection between all of those people so that it's not an individual meditation, but a group meditation? And would a meeting like that be more productive than a meeting where people didn't bother to kind of calm their minds and try and connect with each other? Would you comment on that for a minute?
Well, okay, we're drawing on my personal experience. We are not drawing on my expertise here. So I will say whatever I say next needs to be qualified and supported by people like Michelle Ann, who's been on our show, and Hang on one second. I'm going to look really quick because I want to say it was Holly Duckworth, but I've got to make sense.
While you do that, what I will do is I will encourage anyone who happens to be watching or listening to this, if you have a thought or an inspiration about meditation, group meditation, meetings, meeting dynamics or those sorts of things, you can go and share that with us, please. And you can do that by going to reddirection.com and then navigating over to the comment. I mean, there are other ways to do it, but this is the easiest one for me to remember. And then remind Jess and her team that about the Jess plus Scott behind the scenes show for when you're watching it, and then share with us, and we would love to be able to hear from you.
Yes. And I was right. It was Michelle Ann and Holly Duckworth. So I did get the names right, which is great.
Good for
you.
And
I would say, to your point, yes, there's an answer to that. Now, here's what I do in most of my Zoom meetings. Like at our Red Direction meeting, we just have a little bit of banter to kind of get in, make sure we're all present, and then we get started. In the Girl Scout meetings that I run, I do an energy check-in. What's something positive that's happened recently? Or how much energy do you have today? Or how much of you is actually here? Because those are the types of things that we can all learn from and take stock in. And then it doesn't matter what the answers are. It matters that we've all answered so we can meet each other where we are instead of assuming somebody's in a place they're not.
And I'm doing technical things. Yes.
Okay, great. So,
okay.
I actually think that that's cool about Michelle and Holly being like these. I'm making notes of this also as I go so that we can say that they got a shout out.
Absolutely. And so, good beginnings are so important, and you were talking about good beginnings. And it's if you start off right, then the rest of the meeting, because I know you've done a lot in terms of productive meetings, the rest of the meeting will go better if you start off properly.
That's right. And it's better to end on time than to get everything on the list done.
Really?
Really.
Okay.
Yes, really, because we only have 24 hours in a day, and if we run long on a meeting, we're automatically pushing some next work out that somebody may have scheduled. Maybe late to a meeting, maybe not able to refill their water, go outside and take a breath of fresh air, pee. They're just whatever it is. And so I would say we have to get better at using the time we have, not taking more time than we thought we needed.
Okay, we could talk about this more. I have a response to that, but
you want to say it because now I'm curious.
Sure.
You just kind of let in and like, okay, fine, I want to tell you.
Right. Only, I'll bet you almost anything that a 20-minute meeting can be just as productive as a 15-minute meeting if someone wants to just hone in and focus and concentrate. And I'll bet you almost anything that there is a sweet spot. And people that we like to listen to, people who, are very compelling, are those people who are able to condense, because we think at the speed of light, right? They're able to condense everything to a certain point, and it's a lot less than, what we mostly do, which is pontificate all over the place. Now, I better shut up, otherwise I'm going to, violate what I just said.
I muted myself, and you know what? I was clapping in the background. It's true. It gives us a chance to do a self-check, not only for our own awareness, but you're right, how we use that time. So thank you for adding that. It was worth it, Scott. It was worth it.
Okay. So are you ready for another,
I'm ready.
Spin of the wheel? Okay,
yes.
So hang on. Wonderful. It's number one, Federico Fioletto.
Oh, Federico! Yay! Okay, so Federico and I, we met online, and I tell you what, we have had an interesting and awesome relationship since he and I first met. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about Federico, I'm still looking for him so I make sure I introduce him correctly, is one of his focus and passions for business is he's in Europe, in Italy. And in Europe, as you know, they are ahead in a lot of different ways. And the problems that they are solving in Europe are very different than the problems that we are solving in the US. And then together we both have these bigger problems that span the globe. So I don't want to forget those global issues in this, but recognizing that. And he has been spending time and energy working on sustainability. And sustainability can be all kinds of things. Mostly is a reduction of resources, a reuse of resources, and getting creative about what is actually the product that's happening so that companies can, based off of use and waste and things like that, so that companies can continue to innovate and get stronger at what they do and create a greater impact from a world perspective and a protection of our world and a betterment of our world place.
So let's see what he has to say.
We need a very strong sense of our spiral, which is the company has very clear objectives. They are strategically set. Sustainability and business objectives are very well connected. And then everybody in the organization know where they are going so that they naturally explore only those, so to say, off topics that are in a way connected to the central axis of the spiral. And that becomes a kind of productive brainstorming or exploring of different opportunities to achieve the goal that is clear for us, understood, and shared. So we are back to it's a leadership thing.
Done, done, and done. It's a leadership thing. That's hands down. So how are we thinking about things? And by the way, leadership is changing. We've got people who say, well, let's manage your business and let's be better leaders. And they're considering those as two separate silos. They are two different business functions. They do not need to be two separate silos. And weaving them together is an interesting concept to think about capacity, to think about how much can I handle? How much can I allow the team to handle based off of the resources and meaning money, mental capacity, time, stress, other external factors that are weighing in on all of these things. That's our job. And that's a management piece and a leadership piece. How do I lead my team to go where they need to go when they need to go there and not burn them out in the process? And really understand that give and that take and look at the business management as an integral part of the way leading happens. Because we can be great leaders, yet if we can't move our teams forward to the finish line to start then whatever's next, it creates a different kind of stress, an underlying stress. And so we all need wins. I'll tell you what, I need wins once in a while. No, I need a lot of wins, Scott. And so that's one of, so however that looks and what that looks like. So the way that you're making the decision is the management side of the process. But it's a soft skill that determines your leadership style. What are you thinking about? How open and willing are you to hear other voices different than your own? Where are you getting that information from? Who else could you ask just to have another perspective or a different kind of information? And then making sure that whatever is in that dynamic SWOT that's being used to make decisions is up to date and current with those extra viewpoints, because there's less work to do along the way if you have the basis of your SWOT, your strengths, opportunities, and weaknesses at hand for any decision that comes along.
Okay, well, I've got a question for you. You talked about soft skills. So in management, what is there kind of a rule of thumb, or is there an area in terms of the relative importance between soft skills and hard skills? In other words, could I have great soft skills and be a little weak in terms of the hard skills of my job, or does it have to be 50-50, or how do I compensate, or how would you explore that topic?
So think about this. So there are 5 skills that I've learned about recently that are necessary today. And I think I've said this recently, these same 5 skills, but they're going to come up today. And I still don't know the name of the podcast or the person who said it. So hang with me there. So the first thing is reading. Well, reading is being able to read the words, say them out loud, and understand them. The other side of that is, what other context do you need and what questions could come up? So a hard skill, reading; soft skill, comprehension and context. Writing, being able to write the words and actually write the words with a pen on a piece of paper, as well as being able to type, allows us to communicate. But the way that we put the words together is a soft skill to improve perception and reception. Reading, writing, math. That one's a hard skill, and we use it every time. It allows us to be able to function and read financial reports and create basic ones that we might need, and ask for help for somebody who knows more math than us if we need more math than that. But also then being able to look at those numbers is the soft skill. What can I learn from this data that's collected? And then reading, writing, math, programming. This is the one I think that is most interesting because it is a hard skill. We need to not just know how to turn a computer on and word process. We need to know how to interact with different programs. And so that's the hard skill, but the soft skill is, well, how do I put those programs together? It becomes a problem to solve. And problem solving is a soft skill. And then rhetoric combines all of those together. Each of the first 4 skills that have a hard side, what the actual function is, and then the soft side or the competency side, the way we do it and what we can learn from it to make the best decision, to be fully present, to allow the right information to be uncovered. And so they're equally important, Scott.
Wow. That's about 10 times better answer to my question than I thought I'd get.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm feeling good for thinking on my feet with that one.
Absolutely. Okay, are you ready for the next one?
Yeah, let's go.
Hey, Heidi Mazur.
Yes, Heidi Mazur.
Mazur.
I know, you're doing great with names. I'm the one who says them all the time. So Heidi. She is a fantastic woman who has a side business and a main business. And so she is using her engineering brain in her full-time job at the time that this was recorded. She and I haven't spoken in a little while, so I could be a little bit out, but this is the background for the clip that you're going to see. And let's hear what she has to say.
You have to get your end, and you have to get their perfect wish list. If they don't tell you their perfect wish list, you don't know where they want to end up in the end. If you find out in the middle, 50% done, that they wanted to go this way and you went that way, you have to decide, do we continue on this path? That's a business decision. It's all based upon time and money and resources for sure.
Yes. It is. It's all about resources, and it's also about risk. And it's also about, are you willing to do what it takes? And so we might have if we're only willing to show up 80%, we have to recognize whatever our resources are, we probably only have 80% of them, and to make decisions accordingly. Because to Heidi's point, the way to success is to be all in and show up, and to know and understand, which I also want to come back and talk about the point of no return that she mentioned in that too. And so as we're moving forward and as we're doing these things, if we have a really big goal, but we're not going to be really big to show up to make it, we're setting ourselves up for failure. And that's going to be some bad head trash. And so we need to really understand, being analytical, understanding what's in front of us, making those decisions allows us to fully be all in with where we're at and make goals that are still reasonable, a reach, and most importantly, attainable with what we're willing to give. And I think that that's a big part of it. How will we show up to it? So let's come back to this point of no return. So let's say we're on a path and we find ourselves, we made this goal. We thought we were going to be all into it. We thought we were going to give it everything it was going to require, and we're not, or we didn't. And so we're either evaluating a failure or we're on the path going, wow, for whatever reason, this feels overwhelming, too much. We're on a path to failure. How can we salvage this in some way? How do we show up and make this a positive? Well, good for you for having the awareness to even notice and think about that and pause, because that's it. You got to pause and say, okay, well, here's how much we've done so far. And here's the gap and here's where we're going. And there's a gap there. And so now within that gap analysis, you can actually, that's all it is. Where have we come from? Where are we going? And how far away are they from each other? And so in that space of how far away, figure out how much you can close it. And then is the outcome reasonable and still moves you toward that end path? If the answer is yes, go for it. If the answer is no, it's not reasonable, meaning for whatever reason, it's not enough to cross the finish line, don't go any further. No matter how painful, let it go. Say, yep, we've got some learning, and start over. Let it go and figure out where to move forward from here. There's nothing wrong with you're not too big to fail. I guess that's where I'm going. You're not too far along that you have to finish, even though it's going to be a detriment to you. Never, ever, ever.
What's the difference between what you just said and pivoting?
Oh, Scott!
I knew I could get a response.
Okay, so here would be the deal. Choosing to recognize, okay, so in the example of what I just said, this is not the full example, so I'm only going to talk in the context of my last answer.
Okay.
Is when you choose to stop, the evaluation has been done. If we go forward, we will be at a lack, a detriment, or we won't get to where we need to be. That means it's a waste of time and resources to continue. It would be better to refocus those. In those cases, letting it go is actually a pivot. It may not be a big company-wide pivot. It may be a pivot in a particular area for a particular goal based off of what you know now. The one thing I will say about pivots is that the reason I don't like them is because this concept of them is because I think companies pivot too soon. And so while a pivot is good, what accent was I using?
I never thought I'd hear you say that.
Wow. While it's really important to know exactly where we're at, I think that it's that pause, and take a big pause. If it's a big deal and it's going to be a big pivot, take a big pause. Where are we? What's real? Does it make sense? Are we like 2 inches away and we just have to keep going? Or are we really not going to get it at all? And what is financially sound for the company, and what is financially sound for the operations that are in place, the vendor agreements, the customers, the employees, all of that comes into play in that. How'd I do, Scott?
You did well. You did well. Let's see here.
Pivot. Oh, totally threw me off my game. Oh, or a hot button.
What was that?
I said, or a hot button, maybe a soapbox.
Something like that. Okay, yeah. Well, I'm done with what I have to say.
Okay, then let's go to the next one. I'm ready.
Oh, okay. Have we done 3 already? Haven't we?
We have done 3.
Yeah. So do you want to do a bonus one?
Let's do a bonus one.
Okay, so we're going to do a bonus one. This is just going to take a second here. Go ahead and fill while I do this.
Okay, so one of the things that I'm really excited about is that I'll tell you a little secret. Our supporter listener program is incredibly amazing, but you want to know something? It has the wrong name. Because we don't want you to be supporter listeners. We want you to invest in yourself. And what the feedback that we have received from people in the supporter listener program is that they're like, well, this is way more than just supporter listener. This is a way for us to improve our leadership development. This is a way to get answers to our questions to your full library of video, audio, and text, all to get me somewhere on the path and continuing to move forward before I actually get there. And so I'm like, oh, well, so we're not supporter listeners. So this is kind of like the sneak peek. You got the heads up. We are changing the name to better reflect the feedback we are getting from you.
Okay, thank you. That was perfect. Couldn't be better. Let's go to the wheel.
I love this wheel. Jeff Barnes. Okay. Jeff, now he's in the Pacific Northwest, if I am remembering correctly. And actually, he is a colleague of a mutual friend of ours, Brenda. That's how I met him.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah. So, I'm actually looking him up to make sure I've got it right. Jeff Barnes. Here we go, because I always want to represent everybody correctly. Yeah, he was talking to us about mindset also. Must be the day of mindset, right? Must be the day of anchoring in and pausing. That's been common throughout our things too. And he's really good at structuring and systematizing. So I can't wait to hear what this clip is about.
Well, Jeff is one of my favorite guests as well, and you know I just spend hours and hours and hours with him because I'm the behind the scenes person usually doing the editing. So I'm looking forward to this as well. So hang on, let's go ahead and do it.
If a salesperson doesn't think that it's important that they grow individually, then you have those old crusty salespeople from 20 years ago that are trying to do the same exact sales tactics, and they're going to try and sell the same exact way, but it's a different generation now. It may be hard for them to understand having a growth mindset is important. That I can believe. But the fact that they don't need to do it, that is utter BS. Because if they are not growing, they're not learning about the business. But what they have to realize is there's a whole operational piece behind that sale to keep that customer happy. And they have to learn about what's going on inside the business. They have to learn about the innovations going on inside the business, the vision and the direction of the business. And if they can adopt that and they can start to see why that's important, that is growing their mindset.
Yep. So we were talking about mindset in that program. And of course, Carol Dweck's book came up, The Fixed Mindset and the Growth Mindset. And one of the things that I recognized over this last year, not only in myself, but with the owners and founders of the companies that I have been working with, is that we're not always growth oriented, even if we like to think we are. We're also not always fixed. We don't always have a fixed mindset, even though we might think that we are. And so I think it's where blocks happen, where we get stuck and must like unstick ourselves, comes from the places that we have that closed mindset, the place where we want to protect what we know for whatever reason, because at some point we needed to, and we kept it and we held it on. It's like part of our baggage. And so we could be overall in this growth mindset place, but there could be something that like makes everything, the brakes screech, and that's that. And so one of the things that I think is important to recognize is, it comes back to our awareness. It comes back to the pause. It comes back to the power of being mindful and having practices that help in other ways like that, to specifically know when we might have triggered something that puts us in reaction mode, even though for the most of the time we're responsive, or something that makes us even more protected, that says, instead of going, maybe I could be a little bit more open here.
Okay, it sounds like what you're saying is that oftentimes we get in our own way, and if only we get out of our own way, we might be able to, and then you can fill in the blank, and in this case, growth is the blank. But that might be true for other things, right?
It is. It's true for absolutely everything. And I'm going to just stick with business. It can happen with relationships in business. It can happen with the systems. It can happen with the processes. It can happen with, and at a more fundamental root level, issues that exist around the mission, the vision, and the values. Inconsistency between what has been written and what is said and the way that the work is done, being out of alignment, can cause these weird, I'm going to call it these unwritten agreements that actually undermine doing good work, being collaborative, moving together, feeling included, knowing that everybody has a voice, can preclude all those things. And it's important for us to show up and say, how do we ensure everybody has a voice here? And how do we ensure that even if they don't have a voice here, that they're represented in the outcome?
So I am delighted. This is kind of a sampling of what anyone will be able to hear and experience from the Bold Business podcasts. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this behind the scenes. This is taking it a little bit beyond that, a little bit of a bonus, but this is very much the look and the feel of Bold Business podcast. And if someone is interested in learning more and going deeper, what do they do, Jess?
Yeah, what do they do, Scott? They are going to go to reddirection.com. Or if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to subscribe to our channel, both the Jessica Duell channel and the Voice of Bold Business channel. If you are on LinkedIn, you're going to click the button that says Connect with Jess, because I'm always excited to learn about people who are on a path of their own growth. Don't forget, though, the podcast has its own LinkedIn page, which is kind of a cool thing so that you can just get notifications when we have new information coming out. Kind of like these awesome behind the scenes with Jess and Scott. I know, right? So visit, and most importantly, most consistently, you can listen to us on every platform: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. No, Google Podcast, it changed, my bad. And all the other ones, iHeartRadio, you name it, we are there. And you can always visit reddirection.com to get the direct link to your player of choice. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm going to do one final shout out to our clips, which were Mark Podolsky, Federico Ferreira. Oh my gosh, now I did it this time. Ferretto, Heidi Mazur, Jeff Barnes, and our awesome shout outs, because they popped into our heads as we were talking about these clips: Michelle Ann, Holly Duckworth, and Brenda. And Brenda's an amazing photographer in Seattle. So thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. I can't wait until next time.
Bye-bye.